Every time you flip a light switch, stop at a traffic light, or use GPS on your phone, you're using inventions shaped by black brilliance. But here's the uncomfortable truth. History books erased their names. These are 7 stories they never taught you in school. And the last one will absolutely shock you. What if everything you learned about invention history was incomplete? What if the names you memorized in school were only half the story? This isn't about conspiracy theories or wild claims. This is about documented, verified history that somehow never made it into the textbooks. The pattern is always the same. A black inventor creates something revolutionary, something that changes how the world works. And then, slowly, their name fades away. Sometimes their ideas were stolen outright. Sometimes they were denied patents because of the color of their skin. And sometimes they simply got written out of the story because the people who printed the books didn't think their names mattered. But here's the thing. Their names do matter. Their stories matter. And after watching this video, you're going to understand the modern world in a completely different way. Because the technology you use every single day exists because of these 7 people. And it's time you knew their names. Before we dive into these incredible stories, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these names. Because when we share their stories, we give them the credit they were denied. Let's make sure the algorithm doesn't bury this truth the same way history did. Now, let's start with the man who made one of the most famous inventions in history actually work. Ask anyone who invented the light bulb, and they'll give you the same answer. Thomas Edison. It's one of the most famous facts in American history. But here's what they don't tell you. Edison's light bulb was practically useless. It burned out in minutes. The filament inside couldn't hold up to the heat, and the whole thing was more of a party trick than a practical invention. Enter a man named Lewis Latimer. And everything changed. Lewis Latimer was born in 1848 to parents who had escaped slavery. He had no formal education in engineering, no fancy degree, no wealthy family connections. What he had was a mind that refused to quit and a determination that couldn't be broken. He taught himself drafting while working as an office boy. He studied every book he could find. And before long, he wasn't just working in patent offices. He was drawing up the blueprints for some of the most important inventions of his time. Latimer worked with Alexander Graham Bell on the patent drawings for the telephone. Let that sink in. The telephone. But his most important contribution came when he figured out how to make light bulbs last. He developed a carbon filament that could withstand the heat and burn for hours instead of minutes. Suddenly, the light bulb wasn't just a curiosity. It was something that could actually light up homes and streets and factories. Edison hired Latimer to work for his company. He became the only black member of the Edison Pioneers, the elite group of scientists and engineers who worked alongside Edison. But when history books were written, Edison's name appeared in bold letters. Latimer's name appeared nowhere at all. He also invented the first bathroom system for railroad cars, making long-distance travel actually bearable for passengers. And still, his name remained in the shadows. Today, every LED bulb, every light fixture, every lamp on every desk in every office in the world traces back to the breakthrough that Lewis Latimer made possible. The next time you flip a switch and light fills the room, remember the man who actually made that possible. Remember Lewis Latimer. Home security is a massive industry today. We're talking billions of dollars. Ring doorbells, security cameras, video monitoring systems. The ability to see who's at your door from your phone while you're 1,000 miles away. All of it feels so modern, so high-tech, so 21st century. But the woman who invented it? She was a nurse from Queens, New York. and she created her system in 1966. Her name was Marie Van Britten Brown. She worked long, irregular hours at her nursing job. Her husband worked as an electronics technician with a schedule just as unpredictable as hers. They lived in a neighborhood where crime was high and police response times were slow. Too slow. When something went wrong, help took forever to arrive. So Marie Brown decided she wouldn't wait for help. She would create her own solution. Working with her husband, she designed a system that was decades ahead of its time. A camera that could slide to different heights to see whoever was at the door. A television monitor inside the house that showed what the camera saw. A two-way microphone so she could speak with visitors without opening the door. A remote control that could unlock the door from anywhere in the house. And an alarm button that could instantly contact police or security. She filed the patent in 1966. Think about that for a moment. In 1966, while most people were still getting used to color television, this woman invented the entire concept of home video surveillance and remote-controlled security. Every smart doorbell, every home security system, every video intercom in every apartment building. They all exist because Marie Van Britten Brown looked at a problem and invented the future. She never got rich from her invention. She never became famous. Companies worth billions of dollars built empires on the foundation she created, and her name appears in almost none of their histories. But now you know. And that matters. Before traffic lights existed, intersections were death traps. Picture it. Cars and horses and pedestrians all competing for the same space with nothing to control the chaos. Accidents happened constantly. People died regularly. The automobile was supposed to be progress, but progress was killing people. Then a man named Garrett Morgan watched a terrible accident happen right in front of him, and he decided to fix the problem. Morgan was the son of former slaves. He had only an elementary school education, but he was already a successful inventor and businessman by the time he tackled the traffic problem. He had previously invented the safety hood, which was essentially an early gas mask. During World War I, his safety hood saved countless soldiers from poison gas attacks. He once used it himself to rescue workers trapped in a tunnel filled with toxic fumes. But because he was black, he often had to hire white men to demonstrate his invention to potential buyers. They wouldn't trust genius if it came in the wrong color. In 1923, Morgan patented his three-position traffic signal. Before his invention, traffic signals only had two positions: stop and go. The problem was obvious. When the signal changed, cars going in both directions had no warning. They would collide in the middle of the intersection. Morgan added a third position, an all-stop warning that gave vehicles in all directions time to clear out before anyone else could move. He sold his patent to General Electric for $40,000, which was a significant sum at the time. But the real value of his invention was priceless. His three-signal system became the foundation for modern traffic control everywhere in the world. There are over 300,000 traffic lights in America alone. Every single one of them uses the concept Garrett Morgan created. Yet somehow, history books treat his contribution as a footnote at best. 6 billion people use smartphones today, and almost all of them rely on GPS for something. Directions, ride-sharing apps, food delivery, finding the nearest gas station, military operations, aviation, shipping, emergency services. All of it depends on global positioning system technology. And the mathematical brilliance that made GPS possible came from a black woman named Gladys West. Gladys West was born in 1930 in rural Virginia. She grew up on a farm and knew from an early age that she wanted a different life. Education was her way out. She excelled in school, graduated valedictorian, and eventually earned degrees in mathematics. In 1956, she became one of only 4 black employees at the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Dahlgren, Virginia. She was the second black woman ever hired there. For decades, West worked on some of the most complex mathematical calculations in human history. Her job was programming computers to process satellite data and create precise mathematical models of the Earth's surface. This wasn't simple geometry. The Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It bulges at the equator. It has mountains and valleys and ocean trenches. Mapping it accurately from space required calculations so complex that only a handful of people in the world could do them. Gladys West was one of those people. Her work on satellite geodesy became the foundation for GPS technology. The mathematical models she created allowed satellites to pinpoint locations on Earth with incredible accuracy. Every time you ask your phone for directions, every time a pilot lands a plane using instrument guidance, every time an ambulance finds the fastest route to a hospital, you're using technology that Gladys West made possible. But because her work was classified, she couldn't talk about it. She couldn't write about it. She couldn't claim credit for it. She worked in silence for decades while the world used her invention without knowing her name. It wasn't until 2018, when West was 87 years old, that she was finally inducted into the Air Force Space and Missile Pioneers Hall of Fame. 87 years old before the world acknowledged what she had done. Let that sink in. Blood transfusions save over 4 million lives every year in America alone. Accident victims, surgery patients, cancer patients, mothers giving birth, people who would simply die without receiving blood from donors. Today, hospitals store blood safely and use it when needed. But before World War II, storing blood was nearly impossible. It would spoil too quickly. It couldn't be transported. It couldn't be kept ready for emergencies. Then, a brilliant black surgeon figured out how to change everything. His name was Dr. Charles Drew. He was born in Washington, D.C., and showed exceptional talent from an early age. He excelled in both academics and athletics. But medical school after medical school rejected him because of his race. He eventually earned his medical degree from McGill University in Canada, and later became the first African American to earn a Doctor of Science degree from Columbia University. Drew's research focused on blood preservation. He discovered that by separating plasma from whole blood, it could be stored much longer and transported much more easily. This breakthrough changed medicine forever. When World War II began, and soldiers were dying from blood loss on battlefields across Europe, Drew was called upon to direct the Blood for Britain project. He organized the mass production and shipment of dried plasma to British hospitals. He then led the first American Red Cross blood bank. But here's where the story takes a painful turn. The Red Cross decided to segregate blood by race. They would not mix blood from black donors with blood from white donors. There was absolutely no scientific basis for this policy. It was pure racism. Dr. Charles Drew, the man who had made the entire blood banking system possible, publicly spoke out against this policy. He called it unscientific and insulting. Eventually, he resigned. Drew died in 1950 from injuries sustained in a car accident. A persistent myth claims he was denied a blood transfusion at a white hospital, but this isn't true. What is true is that the myth spread because so many black Americans had actually experienced such discrimination in hospitals. The fact that people believed this story about the father of blood banking shows just how deep medical racism ran. Dr. Drew saved millions of lives. Every blood bank in every hospital operates on principles he established. And still, too few people know his name. Over 3 million Americans live with pacemakers. These small devices regulate heartbeats and keep people alive who would otherwise die from heart conditions. They are modern miracles of engineering, and a key component that makes them reliable was invented by a man named Otis Boykin. Boykin couldn't afford to finish college. He had to drop out because the money simply wasn't there. But he kept studying. He kept working. He kept inventing. He became a self-taught electrical engineer with a specialty in resistors, the tiny components that control electrical current in devices. In the early days of pacemakers, reliability was a massive problem. The devices would fail. The electrical components couldn't handle the stress. Then Boykin invented a precision resistor that could withstand extreme conditions. It was cheap to produce, highly reliable, and small enough to fit inside a device that needed to work inside a human chest. His resistor didn't just save pacemakers. It found its way into guided missiles, into computers, into military equipment, into televisions and radios. He eventually held 26 patents, 26 different inventions that changed how electronics worked. The bitter irony is that Otis Boykin died in 1982 from heart failure. The man whose invention kept millions of hearts beating couldn't save his own. And despite holding more than 24 patents, despite his resistors appearing in devices used by millions of people around the world, he remains virtually unknown to the public. Until now, cataracts blind millions of people around the world. This clouding of the eye's lens was once a condition that simply ended people's ability to see. Surgery existed, but it was imprecise and dangerous. Then a black female ophthalmologist invented a device that changed everything. And yes, she faced racism and sexism every single step of the way. Dr. Bath became the first African American to complete an ophthalmology residency at New York University. She co-founded the American Institute for Prevention of Blindness. She traveled to underserved communities around the world to provide eye care to people who had never seen a doctor. And in 1986, she invented the laser phaco probe. Her device used laser technology to dissolve cataracts quickly and accurately. It was faster than previous methods. It was more precise. It was safer. And it could restore sight to patients who had been told they would be blind forever. She successfully restored vision to people who hadn't seen in decades. Imagine that. Imagine giving someone the ability to see their grandchildren's faces for the first time. But throughout her career, she faced constant barriers. She was excluded from medical boards. She was passed over for positions that went to less qualified men. She had to fight for every opportunity while watching others take credit for advances she had pioneered. Her invention is used in eye surgeries around the world today. Millions of people can see because she refused to accept the limits others placed on her. 7 stories, 7 extraordinary people. 7 innovations that touch nearly every aspect of modern life. Light bulbs, home security, traffic control, GPS navigation, blood transfusions, pacemakers, eye surgery, the technology that keeps us safe, keeps us healthy, and keeps our world running. The thread connecting all these stories isn't just brilliance. Plenty of people are brilliant. The thread is the barriers they faced and the erasure they experienced after they succeeded anyway. These weren't people who failed. These were people who won. They invented. They innovated. They solved problems that nobody else could solve. And still, their names were left out of the history books. This isn't ancient history either. Gladys West is still alive. Many of these figures lived well into the late 20th century. They watched as the world used their inventions while forgetting their names. They experienced the strange pain of changing the world without getting credit for it. But here's the good news. History isn't finished. History is being rewritten every single day. When you learn these names, when you share these stories, you become part of that rewriting. You become part of the correction. And that brings us to you. You just learned what most people will never know. These inventors couldn't share their own stories. They didn't have platforms or social media. They didn't have YouTube channels or podcasts, but you do. You have something they never had. The power to spread information to anyone, anywhere, instantly. So here's what I need you to do right now. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss stories like this in the future. Share this video with one person, just one person who needs to hear these names. Drop a comment below and tell me which story hit you the hardest. Which inventor surprised you the most? Whose name are you going to remember? And third, the next time someone asks who invented the traffic light, or the light bulb, or home security, you tell them the truth. You tell them the names that history tried to forget. Because credit 150 years late is better than no credit at all. These are the visionaries who built the modern world. They did it with no support, no recognition, and no reward. They did it anyway. Now the world finally knows their names, and it knows them because you chose to learn, and you chose to share. That's how we change history. One story at a time, one name at a time, one viewer at a time. Thank you for watching. Now go make sure somebody else watches too.